Here in the low desert, there are many things that can be challenging to grow, but peppers certainly are not one of them. And in today's video, I'm going to share my best tips for growing peppers, no matter where you live. But if we haven't met before, my name's Angela from Growing in the Garden, and I love to share garden inspiration and helpful tips so you can be successful in your own garden. If you've tried a homegrown pepper picked at the peak of ripeness, you know why growing peppers in your garden is so rewarding. One of my favorite things about peppers is the sheer variety of peppers there are available to grow. Peppers range from sweet to way too spicy for me and everything in between. I like to grow a couple of sweet peppers, a couple of mild peppers, some jalapenos, a serrano, habanero, and then maybe one really hot pepper just for fun. Choose a variety of peppers and have fun growing peppers. There's so many different varieties to choose from. Peppers require a really long, warm growing season and do best planted from transplant. Peppers are hardly ever planted from seed directly in the garden. They're typically planted from transplants. You can buy those transplants or you can start those seeds indoors. It's up to you. Start pepper seeds indoors about 8 to 10 weeks before you transplant. If you're growing super hot varieties, start them about 2 weeks earlier than other pepper varieties. They often take longer to germinate and mature. In most areas, you're going to plant outside about 2 weeks after your last frost date. You want to let that soil warm up to at least 60 degrees. Here in the low desert of Arizona, we start seeds indoors in late December or early January, and we're going to plant out in February and early March. We can also plant a second round of peppers during July and August. If you're growing seedlings indoors, it's important to begin hardening off those pepper plants about 10 days before you plant. That simply means getting those pepper plants accustomed to the conditions outside. So where's the best place to plant peppers? Peppers prefer rich, well-draining soil. They don't like to have soggy roots. Peppers are one of those plants that grow really well in raised beds and containers and grow bags. If you're growing peppers in containers, make sure that container is at least 5 gallons. That will give the pepper's roots access to enough soil. Pick a sunny location for growing peppers. They're going to do best with at least 6 to 8 hours of sun. During the hottest times of summer here in the low desert, you may need to provide a little bit of afternoon shade. Here's how I plant pepper plants. So you have your pepper plant. You want to dig a hole a little bit deeper than that plant. It's okay to bury about 1 inch or 2 of that stem. When square foot gardening, I plant my peppers about every other square to give them a little bit more room to grow. If you're gardening in typical rows, you want to keep pepper plants about 18 inches apart. Once I plant that pepper plant, I'll let it settle in for a few days, maybe up to a week. I'll cut that stem back just a bit, and that cutting back encourages a fuller, bushier plant rather than a tall, spindly plant. Once I've planted that pepper plant, I like to give it some kind of a support. You can use a tomato cage. Pepper plants will grow large and they need a little bit of support as they grow. I also like to mulch that area really well to help hold in that moisture for that plant. Just like most everything, pepper plants prefer being watered deeply, less often. They do consume a lot of water, but they prefer to get it all at once, wet that whole root system, give them a good drink, and then let that top inch or 2 dry out before you water them again. Pay attention to the blossoms of your peppers. It's important to remove those first blossoms if you see them pop up inside or outside when the plant is first planted. Here are a few tips for fertilizing peppers. Make sure that you're planting your peppers in good, fertile soil that's been amended with compost. Then let that pepper settle in. As you begin to see new growth, feed it with organic fertilizer. And then as you see those blossoms developing, it's a good time to switch to a flower type fertilizer that has less nitrogen. Too much nitrogen results in a big bushy plant, but not a lot of peppers. An Epsom salt foliar spray is also beneficial to pepper plants. 1 tablespoon Epsom salts to 1 gallon of water when they first appear, and then spray again 10 days later. So when is a pepper ripe? A pepper is ripe when it has reached the full color of that pepper. That could be purple, it could be yellow, it could be red. So know what color that type of pepper turns into and wait for it to develop that color. Peppers left to mature on the vine will normally turn from green to yellow to orange, and then red. As the color changes, the flavor and vitamins increase as well. One great thing about growing peppers is they can be picked at any time. If you need a pepper and one isn't quite ripe, you can still pick it. The flavor may not be fully developed, but it's certainly edible. It's important to remember a couple things about harvesting peppers. Number one, those pepper plants are brittle, and so if you just pull off a pepper, you may bring a whole branch with it. It's best to use little hand snips. Leave as much stem as you can on those peppers. That will prolong their storage life. Don't leave your peppers on the plant too long. You'll notice that they start to get soft, and that signals to the plant to slow down production. But keeping your peppers picked often will encourage that plant to keep producing blossoms, keep producing peppers. If you notice any damaged peppers, remove those right away as well. Peppers are definitely frost sensitive, so you're going to harvest the peppers before your first frost. Here in the low desert, we often have pepper plants growing for several years. You can plant them in the spring, they produce in the spring. They may go a little bit dormant in the summer as it heats up and it's too hot for that pollen to be viable. And then once temperatures begin to cool, you'll see pepper production really ramping up. Fall is our best time for peppers here in the low desert. Those peppers will continue producing until temperatures cool. If it gets cold, if we get a frost event, cover your peppers, they may survive, and the whole process begins again. There are 2 times of year I like to give my peppers that are still growing a little prune. That's in the spring, and then again in early fall. I like to trim that plant back just a bit, give it a good dose of fertilizer and a good drink before that next fall flush of peppers comes. That keeps my pepper plants at a manageable size. It's important to be careful when handling hot peppers. Peppers contain a compound which makes them hot, capsaicin. It's an oily compound that produces heat. The hotter the pepper, the more capsaicin the peppers contain. Use gloves when handling hot peppers. Do not touch your eyes or nose. If you do get a burn, soaking your hand in milk or washing your hands in cool water with a detergent type dish soap like Dawn can help, but it may just take some time. Peppers are one of those versatile vegetables. They're delicious fresh, they're so good roasted. You can do so many things with peppers. Our favorite way to use peppers is in salsa. I also like to preserve peppers by dehydrating. Another way I like to preserve peppers is by chopping them up, putting them in little bags and popping them in the freezer. It's really easy to throw in a little bit of that bag into a recipe. My favorite way to store picked peppers is in these Rubbermaid storage containers. I put peppers in there and they will last for weeks. Pick a few different types of peppers, add them to your garden, grow something new this year, try a new variety. Peppers are a great addition to any garden. Thank you so much for watching.